Is there a Paul McCartney ghostwriter releasing vintage Wings era songs in Scotland? In one of my previous videos entitled Paul to Faul, Ghostwriting for Paul McCartney, I explore the very unusual music coming out of Glasgow, Scotland. The band, Famous Groupies, came to my attention while researching Paul McCartney and his work with Wings, specifically the Wings songs of the mid-70s. This obscure and seemingly unknown group of musicians have been working on what I assume is a debut album, and they have posted 2 songs to their SoundCloud page. On first listen of the inspired instrumental track called November 9th, 1966, I was bowled over by the direct comparison to McCartney's own instrumental called Junk. The resemblance is uncanny. I was impressed, and naturally I would need to explore the story of the Famous Groupies and their music. I read every bit of information I could find on their website, and I was stunned to find bizarre and remarkable claims made by the band leader, Kirkcaldy Mackenzie. He proclaims to be the keeper of McCartney's lost songs. I was certain that these claims were untrue and were nothing more than silly joking around. The band was having a good laugh and that was that. But as the days passed, I kept an eye out for future releases, and finally a new song popped up on their SoundCloud page. The song was called We All Fall Down, and it was an absolute corker to be sure. The style was identical to that of mid-70s Wings music, right down to the very core of the writing and performance. I was shocked. And being the Beatles fan that I am, and having heard many similar artists who have written in the style of the Beatles, I found myself left wondering how this incredibly astute group of writers or writer was able to pull off such a feat. I felt I had heard Dead Ringers before, but this was beyond copycat. The song in question had a familiar signature, feel, design and sound to it. Yet, it was completely original. It was as if I was hearing an unreleased song from the early Wings catalogue, and a good one at that. Clearly this was not Wings performing this tune, but the song itself was unnatural in today's climate of songwriting. And from the looks of the writer, as there is only one photo of him posted, I could see that Mr. Mackenzie was far too young looking to be the writer of this music. So, I sent Mr. Mackenzie an email and introduced myself. I was initially low-key and I inquired as to the band's origins and if there might be more songs released in the near future. 2 full weeks passed before I received a reply. The answers were polite and straightforward. And so I sent a second email, this time going deeper with my request for information. Now, if you review my original video, Paul to Faul, you will learn of the other strange bits of info or Easter eggs that I had found on the Famous Groupies website. But for now I will proceed without recapping all of that. In my second email to Mr. Mackenzie and the Famous Groupies, I inquired about the nature of the songwriting, and the response I received left me with goosebumps. Here is what the email said. Thank you very much for your interest in the band, that means a lot to me. Okay, to answer your question, the answer is yes and no. I write some of the songs, but mostly I co-write them. I'm 22 and I come from a musical family. My father and both my brothers are also musicians, but my grandfather is my biggest influence as a songwriter. In fact, he was a session musician in the 1960s, 70s and early 80s. He has written for other people, mostly that happened in the 60s and 70s. Both he and my dad were responsible for my love of the Beatles and Paul McCartney's music. Oh, he was also good friends with Denny Laine back in the day. Truth be told, my grandfather wrote most of the songs we are recording. And yes, most of them were written in the 70s. He has cupboards full of them. The amount of songs he has written is insane. His health has not been so great lately, and I've been working with his songs as a tribute to him. I love the songs and I feel honored that I get to arrange them and help with lyrics here and there. I have co-written a few as well. And to answer your other question, no, I do not know Paul McCartney. LOL. Ah, but my grandfather has met him. They met in 1966. Thanks again for all the interest in our music, I really appreciate that. Cheers KM. Well, this information was all very pleasant and straightforward. But I did detect a few red flags. First, how unusual for a young musician to be recording vintage original songs from the mid-70s, and those written by his grandfather. Also, he mentioned that his grandfather had been good friends with Denny Laine back in the day. What a coincidence. And, that he had met Paul McCartney in 1966? That is a very curious year to have met Paul, don't you think? That was the purported year that the actual Paul McCartney had died. How curious indeed. Is it possible that Mr. Mackenzie's grandfather is the original ghostwriter for Paul McCartney? Or at least the ghostwriter of so many classic Wings hits? Why would all these good songs be stuffed away all these years? And why do they sound exactly like early Wings era music? Why would anyone write in that style and stockpile the songs for so many years? If his health is truly failing, was it his request to have his family record and release them? I did send a third inquiry email to Mr. Mackenzie, and what he sent back was unbelievable. First, I had asked to hear his album and I offered to review it for my blog. He politely declined and said that the songs were still in post-production. However, he did send me the lyrics to 5 songs. And every lyric was perfectly written in the style of Wings era music. Flawless, in fact. Paul McCartney could have written them himself. There was one song in particular that exploded like a nuclear bomb as soon as I read the lyrics. This was far more than a red flag. This was a smoking gun. You may read into this what you will, but there is clearly far more to this story than is being told by Mr. Mackenzie. And perhaps the young Mackenzie is unaware of the obvious clues that he is participating in. The title of this nuclear song is incredibly revealing. Don't Bury Me. This title did indeed stand out from the other 4 song titles. The lyrics read like this. Driving out of North Kensington. Heading for the motorway 1. Her name was Rita, said she needed a ride. We ran the light for going too fast. The car exploded with a mighty crash. The phone is ringing, but nobody's home. At 26 he was gone too soon. But the funeral would have to wait. Don't bury me before I'm gone. Don't bury me before I'm gone. Billy was the only one. An orphan and a shepherd's son. He wasn't left, and he sure wasn't right. By Faul he was the king of the band. The Pepper Pots starring Billy Camp. He's still good looking, but he's so hard to see. The papers say that he lost his head. But his future looks so bright, bright, bright. Don't bury me before I'm gone. Don't bury me before I'm gone. Please, Mr. Maccabee. We need you. I'm not supposed to be you. And carry on this way. Your secret's safe. Buried in the grave. There's only one Billy Shears, long gone. And that's you. Don't bury me before I'm gone. After reading these lyrics I was agog. And then I had to chuckle. Honestly, is this for real? What is the game here? To what end? Or is this true and I have stumbled onto a gold mine? A treasure of a lifetime. Regardless of the answer, I intend to pursue this story until the very end. If these songs really are taken from a stash of old McCartney material, or if Mr. Mackenzie's grandfather actually did write them and is perhaps an original ghostwriter for Paul McCartney, and whose health is now fading and thusly he has nothing to lose by having them released in this manner. Well, all I can say is that I hope the album will be released, as I would very much like to hear it in its entirety. But, if the folks at Apple or MPL or McCartney's people catch wind of this, I fear that the album will be shut down and the story will magically go away. What do you think will happen?